Welcome to Forthright and this edition of Reader Feedback on the column titled Every Sheep Needs a Sheepdog and Every Community Needs Police. I live in the world of livestock guardian dogs, livestock and predators. What first drove me to this topic was a desire to correct misinformation about sheepdogs in some of the quotes in an Inlander article, clearly made by people without the same frame of reference. And here's the column as published in the Spokesman Review on October 7th. Storytelling is the oldest and most effective means of communicating abstract ideas. But stories only work when the listeners and the tellers share context. So when the Inlander ran an article with a headline screaming, "Spokane cops read children's book authored by controversial killology trainer to preschoolers," it was clear the writer and those he interviewed didn't understand the underlying analogy. The book is Sheepdogs Meet Our Nation's Warriors, co-authored by Dave Grossman and Stephanie Rogish. It's hard to tell if the objections in the article were primarily to Grossman's previous books exploring, quote, the psychological cost of learning to kill in war and society, unquote, on our military and police officers, or to the analogy of society as consisting of sheepdogs, wolves, and sheep. Grossman uses the sheepdog, also known as a livestock guardian dog, or LGD, to explain the role of police and the military in protecting and serving the community. In an author's interview posted at personaldefensenetwork.com in January 2015, Grossman described the sheepdog's role in society, saying, quote, "The ultimate love is not to sacrifice your life, but to live a life of sacrifice, to place the welfare of others ahead of your own." This is what we as a community ask of every law enforcement officer and every military member. We respect that commitment to be ready to place the welfare of others ahead of their own lives. It's what sheepdogs do. Several years ago, we lost 9 goats in one night to a cougar attack on a grazing project near Leavenworth, Washington. 6 were dead, 3 were missing, 1 goat was left wounded. Without the help of my niece, newly graduated from the Washington State University School of Veterinary Medicine, we would have lost 10 goats. Logan Black came to the rescue, treated the wounds, and showed me how to follow up for the next month with dressing changes and antibiotics. We nicknamed that doe McQueen for her great escape. Major wildfires had disrupted normal territories that summer for predators and prey alike. The game warden from the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife checked the scene of the crime and determined there had been 3 cougars involved, likely a mature female and 2 adolescent cubs displaced from their normal territory. The missing goats were presumably dinner, the other 7 victims of play or practice. Big cats like to toy with their prey just like a house cat. 2 border collies sleeping in the truck had not alerted anyone, but they aren't bred or trained for a protective instinct. It's not their job. It didn't matter to us or to McQueen that the cougars were just playing or were temporarily homeless. Our goats needed protection. The next year, we bought an Akbash Commodore Cross LGD to travel with the herd and have added 2 Akbash rescue dogs at home on the ranch. We haven't lost an animal to a predator since. Not even the autumn night when a cougar attacked and killed our neighbor's pigs. Not even the winter day another neighbor chased a wolf away from their cows and up the draw next to our pastures. Not this summer when Gigi treed and ultimately chased off a bear at a project near Cleonum. Our guardian dogs don't have to fight. Warriors protect by being ready to fight and letting the predators know it. Sheep and goats both need protection from predators, whether they be wolves, cougars, or bored teenagers making stupid decisions to toy with fences. Gigi has chased off a few of those 2-legged types as well. Watching any herd animal, including sheep, provides plenty of analogies to human behavior. There's nothing wrong with being a sheep, as long as you are in the hands of a good shepherd. But as Grossman's book points out, humans also have choices to be a sheepdog or a wolf. A herd of goats or a flock of sheep merely tolerate or ignore the presence of the sheepdog until they need help. But when a predator approaches, they bunch together, while the LGD inside their fence places herself between the herd and the hazard, and her partner outside the fence gives chase. The analogy could as easily be rabbits, sheepdogs, and coyotes. Before we had guardian dogs protecting the ranch headquarters, there were no rabbits. Now we have cottontail rabbits everywhere because they know a coyote-free safe zone when they see one. In the same way, people seek out the comfort of protectors. The 23rd Psalm is familiar to many of the non-religious as well as Christians and Jews. Known as the Shepherd's Psalm, the words, "Thy rod and thy staff comfort me," once were a puzzle to this city-raised kid. How could 2 sticks of wood be comforting? It only made sense after I found myself married to a shepherd. A staff refers to the shepherd's crook, used for guidance and direction, while the rod is a defensive weapon against predators. The shepherd needs a rod as well as a staff, but when the shepherd can't be on guard himself, he needs a sheepdog. So does every sheep, because the wolves are out there. All analogies rely on a common context and information, and they can and will be interpreted through each individual's experience of the world. My 89-year-old mother is my most faithful reader and scrapbooks every column, along with every letter to the editor, positive or negative. She texted me the morning of publication saying, "Great column, how can anyone complain about that?" Well, Mom, there were a couple of people. Jeffrey Feiner, a Spokane trial attorney, wrote good-naturedly from a different perspective. He writes, "As a member of the flock, whose job it is, from time to time, to bring bad dogs to heel, I'd sleep better if the dogs running the show actually police their own, as, from time to time, one bad dog spoils the pack. And the pack of dogs, rather than acting like the good shepherd's enforcement arm, the crook, the wooden kind, protect the bad dogs." If your purchased and trained LGD attacked sheep or tricked the shepherd, you'd fix that, right? Just to push your analogy into the real realm, I represent police, victims, and persons charged with crime. It's a rare officer who exposes a colleague's misconduct, and some who do are chased away for doing the right thing. By the way, Psalm 23 is well known to the people whose forebearer wrote it. Kindly remove the blinders, please, so you don't accidentally promote the suggestion that it arose from Christian doctrine. We are not a non-thing. We fear the bad dogs and their enablers. Cordially, Jeffrey. It was such a good example of how to agreeably disagree that I wanted to read the whole thing. We need more such dialogue. And in my response, I immediately apologized for bungling the Psalm 23 reference. I know better. My original wording in the print version was, "This 23rd Psalm is familiar to many non-Christians as well as Christians." And I made a correction in the online publication to read, "The 23rd Psalm is familiar to many of the non-religious as well as Christians and Jews." And that was in itself a great example of how easy it is to lose the intended meaning, in this case, acknowledging a growing lack of a common frame of reference as we move further away from our Judeo-Christian roots as a nation, just with a simple semantic oversight. As for the bad sheepdogs, oh yes, they do exist. Bad dogs are a result of bad training or a mismatched assignment. The analogy holds. Police and military officers also need good training, accountability, and to be assigned to their strengths. Jeffrey's other concern was that training police officers to be hypervigilant and to treat every encounter as a potential risk can have unintended and unhealthy consequences. But there are potential risks. We do ask our police officers to be ready to risk their own lives. And it does come down to training and developing a sense of discernment for which situations have the greatest potential to escalate. When our dog Gigi first went on the road with our traveling herd, it was the summer of Pokemon Go and her first assignment as a guardian dog. It took a year for her to learn to back off from full alert at every encounter. She had to develop discernment to chase the bobcat running through the pen, but not freak out at the cyclist zipping by outside the fence. To alert to the bored teenagers trying to let the goats out, and to back off if it turns out to be someone wandering by on the sidewalk seeking a Pikachu. Both training and experience are essential to doing the job correctly, but the job does need to be done. Sheepdogs doing it right are guardians, just like police officers doing it right. Another reader feedback email picked up on Jeffrey's question about how to handle a sheepdog that attacks sheep, but pushed it further. Wayne wrote, "In general, the white sheep either don't like, don't know, or don't pay much attention to black sheep, so when a sheepdog occasionally kills a black sheep, it goes unnoticed by most of the herd because the vast majority of the sheep are white and the sheepdog only kills black sheep." Wayne, while I appreciated the civility of your email, you don't know sheep. Large flocks traditionally include black sheep as a way to quickly count heads, and missing black sheep would be readily noticed by the shepherd. The sheep don't care about the color of wool. Adding any new sheep of any color to an existing flock can be a problem. They smell different and the flock knows they don't belong. Sheepdogs might hassle a newly introduced sheep that does not smell the same as the rest of the flock, but it's got nothing to do with color. You're really stretching an analogy beyond its limits to make a point. And any sheepdog who kills sheep will either be reassigned, rehomed, or put down as a predator. No decent shepherd would tolerate such behavior. Which brings us to the real question. Who is the shepherd? Is it someone who knows and understands the sheepdogs, the sheep, and the wolves? We took in 2 Akbash guardian dogs on our ranch as rescues. They had not been raised around livestock and had not been trained. Luna was young enough to introduce to the goats after we taught her not to cross the road to kill the neighbor's chickens. She has settled into to be the guardian dog for the home herd. I can sleep well knowing she's there to warn off passing predators. Our other rescue was an older male, mistreated by a man who had no business breeding dogs. We have Diesel because he killed a Chihuahua. It took serious retraining for him to allow my grandson and husband near him, and he's still not sure about men in general. There were also unfortunate incidents with an elderly cat, the neighbor's chickens, same neighbor, we bought them more chickens, and a few of our goats. I couldn't bear to put him down. We reassigned him from livestock guardian duty to patrolling outside the goat pens and around the house as my guardian and a driveway alert system. I am more vigilant about fences, although goats still occasionally go walkabout, but now Diesel seems to have mellowed with age. Last time a goat got out of the pasture and turned up in front of the house, he channeled his inner Clint Eastwood with a get off my lawn bark and didn't seem inclined to chase. He does still chase coyotes, and he once took on a badger that ventured up to the house. But it's my responsibility to keep him on assignment, my responsibility as the shepherd to provide accountability. So here's the final question for this year's municipal races. Which candidates best understand the needs of the sheep, the dangers presented by the wolves, and the job of the sheepdog to protect and serve? Making those choices in these races will require voters to use their own discernment. Thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you on a future edition of Forthright.